Tom, you've written about what the future might hold for Britain, and one such term that has become popular, or not so much popular, but it certainly hit the airwaves recently. You've written about, I don't know, Aris Roussenos, who writes for the Unheard, quite a lot has written about it. This concept called Anglo-Futurism. What is it, and why do you support it?
Anglo-Futurism is this great, fantastic idea that is, completely unreachable. I mean, it's nothing more than a pipe dream. That Britain has a future that is just not managed to climb. And it's completely undoable, completely unrealistic, but it's important to have dreams, isn't it? So Anglo-Futurism, I think, started in, and I do not claim to speak for them or understand it that much, but it started as a kind of aesthetic movement in Anon posters on the right wing, and then I kind of consumed it via their AI-generated images and the Aris Roussenos piece, which people haven't read, people should read. But basically, it's a vision of Britain if we were doing things, if we had a government that was capable of doing stuff, which it seems we have a government, and I'm actually genuinely not sure that change of government will change this. We have a government that is basically incapable of doing stuff. So a lot of the particularities around Anglo-Futurism are the vast increase in infrastructure. So a lot of these kind of Anglo-Futurist images are infrastructure that looks fantastic and is built really, really well. And in that sense, I think it's a callback to the Victorian era, where the Victorians built pumping stations in like a neoclassical style. Everything the Victorians built was needlessly complicated, and it was needlessly grand, and we were so much better for it. And I think there is a concept of the enshittification of Britain, where now we have train stations. When the Victorians built train stations, they built Newcastle Central, which is absolutely glorious. They built St Pancras, they built King's Cross, which has this amazing industrial iron and glass ceiling. Newcastle Central has the same kind of ceiling. Almost every provincial town in Britain, almost every town or city in Britain has an amazing Victorian railway station, and all the suburbs have modern railway stations that are fucking horrible because they have been created in using modern building regulations that basically make it impossible to build nice things. And I think Anglo-Futurism is slightly a response to the aesthetic enshittification of Britain, and a desire for us to build buildings that look a lot nicer as well as are practical. And I think that's part of it. And I think what it also is a latent desire for a government to be able to actually build those things in the first place. So a lot of these images are of things like small modular nuclear reactors, or of things like, I think there's a thing of spaceports, huge cargo container ports. There are also quite famous series of particularly right-wing ones of border defences that are just basically massive seawalls of Dover. And I think in a lot of ways, I think this is a latent desire for a government for a government that is able to do things that the current Conservative government has not been able to do, which is, for instance, lower the cost of energy, lower the cost of living through increased energy production, through small modular nuclear reactors, and through to lower the cost of living and protect the countryside through mass adoption of rail systems, HS2, maglev systems, and apparently to defend our borders by putting up massive iron seawall. So yeah, I think Anglo-Futurism is basically, I think it's partly about futurism, but I think it's more about a reaction against what we are not achieving in the here and now.
Yeah, I suppose there's some common themes in it. A self-reliance to a degree. I think generally, whether people could put their finger on it, I think people are quite sick of having to import absolutely everything, whether it's energy, whether it's goods. We want to get back to making some things again, getting some spades in the ground for things that'll last. And yeah, the vernacular architecture point that you make is an important one. Things that look beautiful and that feel familiar. And let's be honest, are the things that Britain is famous for and why people visit it far and wide and come to choose to live here and take their selfies in front of, are all these buildings you talked about. And I don't know if you follow the account on Twitter, the Culture Critic account. Excellent. I mean, the guy who runs that, every day a thread dropping into your account, either schooling you on the great artists of the past or the great cathedrals. His most recent thread that I saw anyway was on vernacular architecture, and it started with this picture of a city, and it was a financial district of a city. He said, "Can anyone guess where it is?" And I knew it only because I'd been there, but it's totally unremarkable. And that was the point, in that every city has followed this model of skyscrapers, glass and steel buildings, generally spherical or jutty edges, or cylindrical or jutty edges, or a mixture of the two. And exactly. And it was a picture of Frankfurt city centre. And he was like, I don't understand why the Germans, in this case, have embraced such an architecture when what they're well known for, and I appreciate it can't be half timbered houses everywhere, but you know what you think of when you think of Germany. And you can think about that if you think about Japan, and even places in India, if you've seen them, places in France, is that there's a way of being, and it's in tune with the landscape, the people, and their mores. And I don't see there being any conflict in this idea that we can look towards some kind of future whilst also having some kind of a nostalgic look at the past. And I'll invoke Scruton again, because he talked about how nostalgia is often dismissed and it's used as a pejorative, that is only for backward-looking, regressive people. But he said some of the greatest works of civilization have been based on nostalgia. The Greek root is nostos, which means like a yearning for home or something. Said the whole of Odyssey and the Iliad were written about that. Homer, this great man, the whole story was about him going home. And it's okay to want that, and it's okay to want to maintain it some way. It's like it is a realization that thing's gone, but you can find ways in which to live on, and things that are built that are going to stand longer than, well, maybe not in the case of new buildings, but if we were to build in that style, the places you've mentioned, the ones that are still standing will stand for much longer. The ones that aren't is because we ripped them down in an act of cultural vandalism. People want those. So yeah, I think we could go back to it. And I know Ed West has written about it on one of his Substacks, this notion of why is it that we build houses in a certain style and flats in a certain style when people don't want to live there? And some people say that's not true. They do want to live there. And then you can pull out any number of surveys that hold side by side something built in a kind of classic Georgian or Edwardian or Victorian style next to something that is modern, and people will roundly choose the former, the vernacular style.